grab your attention. Say, you ever been smallmouth fishing in Tennessee? They've got some good spots over there. Maybe Pickwick around Memphis or Center Hill, Dale Hollow by Nashville. How about the Little Pigeon River over at Gatlinburg? That's what I said, the Little Pigeon. About an hour from Knoxville, heads up in the Smoky Mountains and runs right through Sevierville. I'm Jerry McInnes, and the Fishin' Hole introduces Alan Coletti. Hey, he's an expert on this water. Well, let's talk about the Little Pigeon, the place specifically where we're fishing. I find extremely interesting. How long have you been hiding at? Or pardon me, I didn't mean that. How long have you known about that?
Now, right? I guess that I've been doing pretty well on that river for 8 or 9 years. And during the period, say April to May, you're going to pick up some very large spawning smallmouth coming upstream.
Right.
Then after that, you get into the summer months, the water level begins to drop, and most of the fish that you pick up there will be fairly small from then on till October, and then you'll start to pick up some pretty large numbers of smallmouth, although the trophy fish don't seem to be much in abundance then.
Yeah, you're telling me you've really never caught a fish over 2 or 3 pounds
Probably
after
2
May?
pounds. 2 pounds would be about the biggest smallmouth that I've picked up after, we'll say, last week in May, first week in June.
Funny, we always think of a trout, a steelhead, whatever, doing a lot of migrating. You really don't think about a smallmouth moving a whole lot.
Well,
but, you know, I tell you, I've had situations where I fished on creeks that dry up, completely bone dry, and then the next spring when water comes in there, there's plenty of smallmouth there, so they must move from someplace.
Well, I believe that's what's happening. When I fish the lakes, you know, I think of the smallmouth as being sort of a homebody, stays in an area where he has forage and has deep water as sanctuary, and then can come out in the spring and spawn. And, you know, they don't seem to be moving around like the largemouth do, but these riverine smallmouth seem to travel some pretty great distances to get up in here and spawn, and then just like that, I mean, you'll be real surprised one day catching big fish, and then they're gone, and you just won't see them again until next year.
Until next year. And big fish is really, you know, I'm not in the big fish. I never have been. I just like to get bites. I always tell everybody I just go for the bites. But this is pretty impressive. It was much, well, I shouldn't say they're much larger than I thought they were going to be. They are kind of, but I didn't realize it was going to be in those numbers.
Yeah, well, it's not uncommon to pick up 2 or 3, 4 pound fish if you know what you're doing. In that river, you've got what I would call an oasis situation, you know, where you have what the smallmouth is looking for. Then you've got these sandy stretches that may stretch for 200, 300 yards, and those places are completely unproductive unless you find a fish in transition or something walking down through there. And occasionally I've picked up a fish like that, but pretty much I don't even bother with it anymore. Boy, did you see the fish that just jumped off right there? Man, this scene right here will give you a pretty good idea of what time of the year we're making this trip. Dogwoods are blooming, boy, you betcha. Must be spring. And the river is certainly no secret. Runs right through the middle of the town of Sevierville. Now, with Gatlinburg and Dollywood and the Smoky Mountain Park right there, it can certainly be considered a tourist area. However, 2 days fishing, no other fishermen around. I really was surprised at that. Now, Alan lives there in Knoxville, an hour away, as I said. Happened to just pick up the phone one day and gave me a call to start telling me about the Little Pigeon. And as luck would have it, I was heading that direction anyway. And within a few days, I was knee-deep, literally, in this creek. My minute's been scarfed. I tell you what, you throw a bad minute out there, and you're wasting your time. Yeah, you're right. That's how come I pick up so many of these. Yeah. Watch him. He's going to try to make a run at your... Yeah, that's all right. I'll watch him. Well, I tell you what, he's using the current nicely. Yeah, that is pretty good. And I thought, I saw him swirl out there a minute ago. You look at that. He didn't get out of the water much. You were sure babying that poor little guy. Well, I'll tell you what. How come, Al? Well, you've been very kind. Broke so many times, and I may be able to help you out right here. Oh, boy. I'll bring him.
Come here, fella. Pretty good fish. Now they get their mouth open like that. This time ought to do it, Al. All righty. Keep his mouth open a little bit further. Very good shape. Look at here. Pretty good fish there. You even saved your minute.
Yeah, a lot of, probably not too good anymore, but
oh, hey,
a lot of
you
fun.
didn't even have that fish hooked, man. She is so full of eggs.
Yeah, pretty fish. Boy, I enjoy that.
Yeah, she's got to go back over there and
Do her stuff.
do her stuff, and then probably go back down to the big river and
Come back next year
come back next.
as a 6-pounder maybe.
Yeah, your dreams. And you'll be telling me you caught a 6-pounder. Nice going. Let's get him over in this hole here. If he goes over the shoals down there.
There you go. You got it back in your...
Nothing wrong with that guy.
No, that's a good fish. That's a pretty fish.
That's about like that last one you caught, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a nice
3
looking
pounds?
fish.
Who cares how much they weigh, huh? Gosh, how many do you think are out there, Al?
Quite a few.
That size.
Yeah.
You know, I know there should be a lot of smallmouth in the creek, but like these guys, man,
Nice fish.
he's gone. No weight. Caught him without
Really?
Yeah, I was loose landed him. In fact, you know, I caught him right. Caught him right in there.
They may be out around that corner in the current, scarfing up some food.
Scarfing up minnows.
Crayfish.
Well, what do you think? So far, so good? Well, as you can see, we're using real light line, a small split shot, and we're fishing with live bait today.
I've always been a minnow fisher. Since I was a kid, I don't know, there's something about a fish hitting a minnow. You know, he just goes, peck. You know, it's a really
He
good
doesn't play around with it.
No. And now, of all the fish that we've caught, I don't know about you, I've been that close to you all the time, but all the fish that I've caught, I haven't hooked one badly at all. Every one of them's been in the
they're
lip.
generally going to be lip hooked. At the very worst, maybe half an inch into the roof of the mouth or something like that. So it's real easy just to slip in there, unhook the fish, and just turn him loose. And that's what I would hope that people would do.
Yes,
Because
sir.
there are too many fish species, the brim, the bluegill, and the crappie, that can be utilized as a fish if somebody wants to have a fry. But goodness gracious, on these smallmouth, just unhook them and take a good look at them and turn them loose and let them go about their business and
Yeah,
spawn and insure fish for generations to come.
And if you're fishing along and you feel a little tap, and then you will almost instantly feel a little weight on your line, the thing to do, and here I don't mean to be telling you, you just tell me if I'm right here. The thing to do is let them move just a little bit,
Right.
and then tighten up and catch them. Don't
Right.
let them swim out there for 15
right,
minutes,
right.
or they really
Right.
will
They-
swallow that minute.
They'll go ahead, since that's live bait, they'll just ingest it right in.
Yeah.
And then you've got a situation where you're going to have to bite the line off. And
Right.
the best thing to do is when you feel that tap, like you say, just ease into them and then fight the fish on in.
We're not jerking.
Oh,
There's
no.
hook setting.
None of this hook setting like you would with a crankbait or
Yeah.
something like that. Forget that kind of stuff. It's just ease into the fish and basically let the current, his weight, and you're easing into him, work to get the hook set, and then fight the fish and have a good time with him and make him release.
Park. And that's the Beerville in the background. My fishing partner, Alan Collette, and I walked the bank looking for another hole of water that might hold just one more smallmouth bass. And you know, this is really good news. You know, there's not many fishermen in our country who lack access to this species of fish. And, you know, I've always said that this is my favorite, and I think that's for a handful of reasons. Number one, I love the places that you catch smallmouth, the clear creeks and rivers and lakes. And I obviously enjoy how they fight. They are the toughest, and then they're so beautiful, man, regardless of where you catch them. And maybe these fish over in Tennessee are not as dark or as stocky as a Minnesota or maybe a Maine smallmouth, but they are all great. Now, during our couple of days over on the Little Pigeon, we walked and waded, naturally, several pieces of water. But one morning, we waded into one stretch where there must have been a convention of 3 and 4 pound fish. Never seen anything like it. I would guess, believe it or not, I would guess that we caught maybe 5 or 6 of that size, 3 or 4 pounds. Had that many more on that jumped off. They jump off pretty easily. And then we probably had several more heavy fish drop the bait. And all this happened in probably an hour tops. All fish about the size of the one being caught right here. And the really neat thing is the fact that we caught them in an area about the size of your living room. Oh, boy, that was something. That was a good hour of fishing. It goes without saying we tried that place again. In fact, we tried it again and again. But that group of fish never came back. Didn't want to play that game anymore, which was all right, I guess. I always have a good time looking the whole place over. If that had happened, I'd probably stayed in that hole for 2 days. Boy, those were good fish, though. Remember, this is spring fishing. Alan says that the only time to be there is in the spring. If you're there in June or July, you'll probably get some fish, but they'll be a lot smaller.
Al, is it pretty safe to say that for as popular as the Smoky Mountain National Park is, it's not fished too heavily, is it?
Oh, no, you'll be real surprised to find some big smallmouth through here. I was shocked when I started catching 4-pounders and saw all the activity around the stream. It's really underutilized.
You've done some of the trout fishing, too. Where do you do? Go way back in the boonies, I guess,
go on up higher altitude and catch the brook trout. And again, for the traffic that we have through the park, it is extremely underutilized.
Well, wouldn't it be a good idea? I'm kind of a winter guy myself. Wouldn't it be a good idea to fish it when it's really nasty weather and everybody's gone home? Yeah,
and especially if you can get in here after a rain or something like that, times that you don't see many people around and the water starts to clear up, that would be a great time to get in here and do some fishing.
Well, you were talking to me earlier about some lakes that I guess are adjacent to the park, not necessarily in the park.
If you travel just over these hills, you'll get into a chain of lakes, the Chilhowie, Choa, and they feed on up to Fontana Lake. And all those lakes are formed by what used to be the Little Tennessee River. And you'll pick up nice walleye fishing, smallmouth bass fishing, and then what more people probably go after, the rainbow trout, the brown trout also.
And you do that in a boat, I guess.
Yeah, generally speaking. You may hike into some of the streams that are feeding into those lakes and do some trout fishing off the bank and wading, but predominantly you're going to be casting from a boat. Yeah, and then as far as fishing the little streams, and I guess the management keeps them stocked pretty well. As a matter of fact, yesterday they were stocking some of the streams with trout here in the park. And I imagine they keep them stocked pretty good. Right, they do a real fine job down in Gatlinburg. They do stocking, I think, every Thursday. And then these areas,
every Thursday?
Yes, I believe so.
That wasn't just a fluke yesterday. It happens every Thursday.
That's the situation. It's probably every Thursday or maybe every other Thursday. But they do work to keep those stocked. And then right across this big peak here, you can go down into the Cherokee Indian Reservation, and they very heavily stock that. And in fact, there's some big trout that are picked up in there. And then as you work your way on up into the higher altitude areas, you'll get some native brook trout and that sort of thing.
Hitting stripers and bluefish from deep in the heart of New York City. And in between, well, Hoover's going to stop by the cabin, visit with us about fishing with spinning tackle, fishing with light spinning tackle, and right now I'd kind of like to get his thoughts on jig fishing.
A very good technique. It's not real complicated to learn, and
it's not.
I've always believed through the years that you kind of go back to the basics, you know, and in both the bait and the type of equipment that you use, and of course jig fishing, and that is light line and spinning type outfit, which is relatively easy to learn and easy to use.
Well, look, I've got some lures here, and I can take these guys, and I got some in this little box. You know, I can dump all these lures out here in front of us. I can take all the ones in this bag. And Charlie, I've got grubs and gitsets and marabou jigs and crawdads and, you know, the whole wad is right there. And if we go over here in Wisconsin and they tell me, well, up here, you know, they don't get these gitsets, they just hit grubs up here. Then you go over to Oklahoma and they say, well, boy, the gitsets are much better here. I really think that's a bunch of hooey.
You know, when we first started back there, we basically started with something that was black, and that was a jig.
Right.
Or white, you know, and they either bit one of the two.
Right.
And we caught them that way. You know, one day they'd bite black, next day they'd bite white. But then through the years, other baits came along, and you take the grub, basically a smoke, which is probably like a shad or a minnow, and an avocado or a green color would maybe represent a crawdad in that. And I think you could go to those two colors and probably be effective any place in the country.
Yeah, could you take the perfect technique in the wrong color and catch some fish?
The perfect technique in the wrong color, sure.
You know, Charlie used to be a cameraman here on the Fishing Hole some 25, 26 years ago, well before Ranger Boats discovered him. And he found out that he was worth more than $10 a day. Son of a gun, he's always been a tough little fisherman.
Very close to the size, maybe, of what they're feeding on.
Why the light line? Because I think that's so important. Why the light line?
Back when we first started, I used to think the light line had a lot to do with the water clarity and fished lakes that were very, very clear. You know, you could see, the old coin a phrase, you know, you could read a newspaper 25 foot deep. But, and that's why I started. But through the years, I learned that it was more than that. It was that I used a lot of 4-pound line, a lot of 6-pound line, and the size of the line, the diameter of the line, let the bait maybe stay closer to the structure, to the bank, or wherever you were fishing, and in that you were able to either maybe swim the bait along or hop it along, but keep it close. If you use real heavy line and you pull your rod back, then the bait would come way out off the bank, and the fish are back in here, and they're not way out here, you know, and he wouldn't come after it.
I hope people are really tuning in on this, because this is so important. It really is.
You know, along with that, and you talk about it, through the years, I believe you notice you probably catch more fish when the bait's actually falling.
Oh, gosh.
And of course, the trick...
Are you reading my script here? That's the next thing I wanted to talk about.
Well, you know, when it's falling, and the key to that is watching your line.
You said, to me, the magic word there a couple times, and that was feel. And I think the light line allows you to actually feel what's going on a lot better than... In other words, boy, a guy who's fishing 8-pound test line is on a different planet than a guy who's fishing on 4-pound test line.
And there's no doubt about that. Feel and sensitivity, you know, of your equipment, and being able to take the line. The 4-pound line is a lot limper, softer line, you know, and you can actually keep the bait in closer to the structure. You know, when we first started fishing that, 20 years ago, 25, whatever it was, and I used to think, boy, if I had anything bigger than 4-pound line, that I just couldn't catch a fish. Well, through the years, I've learned I can catch them on 6, mainly because I can still see it. I can't see 4 anymore.
You know, I can relate to that. How about you? Well, we twist his arm a little bit. I bet you who will go fishing with us immediately after this break. All places. And you know, our equipment was somewhat larger than what we talked about earlier, but the lures and the techniques are just about the same.
Pretty good at going upstream in that current, too.
Yeah, don't you know them guys gang in here in that swift water around those, in those eddies and pockets?
What do you reckon they're feeding on in there?
No, no. There's probably some bait fish in there of some kind.
You know.
Oh, I saw him swim by as a striper.
Striper.
Was it?
Yeah.
Ah, boy. I had a good hold of hoop. I lost him. Come on, bud. Open up. All right.
They're about a 5-pound fish.
Yeah.
Boy, he knocked the fire out of that, didn't he?
He sure did.
I saw him when he did that. He goes, "Whew."
Let's get him
Pretty
back.
fish.
Let's see, two Charlies in the boat at the same time. How are we going to tell them apart? Well, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll put a New York Yankee hat on Charlie's stem. Oh, Charlie is so proud of his New York rivers. And the other Charlie, well, that's a longtime friend of mine, Charlie Hoover from the Ranger Boat Company in Cleveland, Arkansas. Old Hoove. Now, we're actually on the East River right now, and the East is kind of a side street to the Hudson, which originates in the Adirondack Mountains, way above Albany, and then works its way down some 300-plus miles before forming New York Bay. Now, people, although it's located in New York, this is America's river. You have to realize that this was some of the first fresh water that our early explorers came in contact with. That flows through the capital city of Albany, then through Poughkeepsie before hitting the famous New York City, the most famous city in the world, I guess. And for our fishing, we're taking a turn just above the George Washington Bridge and on into the East River. We're going in front of Columbia University, Yankee Stadium, and settling down just across from Manhattan at Triborough Bridge.
That is one of the most memorable trips I believe I've ever had. And from the standpoint, one, the fishing was excellent. You know, the striper fishing there on the East River and the Hudson River was, gosh, it was good as you get.
That's right.
The other part of that was, though, there you were in one of the most maybe dynamic cities in the United States or in the world, probably. A lot of big business transactions going on up there in the office buildings. While we were down there just catching fish left and right. And, you know, I get several people comment about that, and they say, was the fishing really that good? You know, the fishing wasn't good. It was excellent. And
They won't make a joke out of it immediately when you say, well, we were fishing in the East River and they're in New York City.
we'd fished along that day there, and actually, I think we needed to pull into one of the little docks to make a phone call or something. And there we were in our fishing equipment, you know, and here's guys in three-piece suits coming all around. But, you know, you could look at people there, and once they sensed what you were doing, you could almost see, boy, they wish they were doing that.
Sure, that's right. But, you know, I like to go on fishing trips that were productive for catching fish, but then when you go away from them, how many fish you caught is way down the priority list. Then I think I've really been on an interesting fishing trip, and that was certainly one.
Oh, yeah. You know, there when you look at the Statue of Liberty and Yankee Stadium,
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
United Nations building, and many others that you've heard about through the years, and that was just kind of almost awesome, overwhelming.
Just a little passing shower here, Charlie.
Oh, yeah.
Are those guys tough or what?
Are they tough? They don't like to come to the boat at all.
You can imagine how vicious they are when they're hitting on a topwater bait.
Oh, my land.
Yeah.
I don't think he's quite ready to come see us yet.
Your old buddy's going to help you here.
There he goes.
How you doing with him, Hoover?
Oh, we're just having a great time. We're having a lot of fun.
Holy cow. I'm going to go back in and get out of the rain, Hoove. When you're ready, holler.
We can go have lunch before you bring the food.
All right, now we're... Golly. This is incredible. This is incredible.
How much weight coming?
Coming?
Okay. Here we go. All
right.
Charlie.
Before we get back to the cabin for more of Hoover's wisdom, boy, Yankee loves that, I'm telling you. Let's work this piece of water over just a little bit longer. And I know you find it a little strange that we'd be in this particular area. Fishing the East River in the city is supposedly not a very productive thing to do. But as Charlie said earlier, the fishing was just great. And our actual spot was called Hell's Gate, just below the Triborough Bridge. And all of this trip happened because of an invite from Charlie Stam from New Jersey, who is a regular on these waters. Now, sure, that was Yankee Stadium we passed a minute ago, but just a little bit away from Hell's Gate where we were fishing. And yes, sir, that's the UN building staring us right in the face. I tell you what, there was a little island out in front of the UN building. Good fishing there, believe it or not. And now we're just below the Brooklyn Bridge, and I'm starting to sound like a tour guide, aren't I? You know what? I think that this is a great way to see New York City. I think I've told you that before. There's no traffic, there's no trouble, and hopefully, if you get to try it this way, it won't be raining. Now, it's extremely hard for me to believe that there's more people in some of those giant buildings than there are living in my hometown. That one was something for me, and I really don't know what to say about this scene except that it was real. There were fish there. Charlie Stam wouldn't have been there in the first place, but Charlie Hoover and I fished here without hardly saying a word. Hey, Hoover, if this is a bluefish, I'm going to get you to lip him for me.
Thanks.
Doesn't seem very big. I bet it's a small striper. Let me see. Boy, he's pulling. Not a small fish after all, man.
Kind of stout, isn't he?
Yeah, it's a bigger fish than I... Shoulder? Yeah. Whoa! That's got to be a stripe. You can lift that guy for me, probably. Be careful now, Hoover. This is my first Manhattan striper.
First Manhattan striper.
You can lift him.
Yeah.
You got to hold on tight, though. Hold tight. That's a good size. All right.
Come here, boy. Hoover.
There you go.
Hey,
There you are.
Charlie.
How about that?
Yes, sir. Amazing that's what that other fish was a minute ago.
I bet it was, too.
Yeah, man, he's gone.
Pretty fish.
Yes,
Pretty
sir.
fish.
I've been in and out of my rain suit so many times today. Man, oh man. Yeah, bait her back up again now, Hoove, and we'll make one more drift through Hell's Gate. That seems to be the spot right now. And I want to tell you a little bit about the river as we do that. Obviously, the Hudson River has been damaged from pollution and chemicals through the years. Even the railway system there along the shores has destroyed much of the wetland habitat. And here's the good news. Yeah, you betcha. 20 years ago, it was just dying up there from the millions of pounds of chemicals and the poisonous PCBs. But legislation's put a stop to the loss of the wetlands. The cities constructed and improved their treatment plants. And then the state really strives to follow the Clean Water Act. And industry no longer dumps chemicals into the river. Boy, that's just great news for me. The State Game and Fish Commission and an organization called Clearwater have worked very, very hard. And there's a tremendous improvement on the river during the last 15 to 20 years.
Ooh.
What happened?
Nice.
Yeah, boy, that's the biggest striper we've caught. Whoa, Hoover, you did good, man. You really did good.
Get it?
Yeah, I'm a big taker. Look at here, Charlie.
All right.
Whoa. Go ahead, Charlie. Measuring.
Wow,
That really is. That's a dandy.
34.
34. That was almost a legal one if you wanted to
he was inclined to keep one.
Yeah.
Hey, see if you can get that jig out of his mouth.
Okay.
All I can do is hold him. And he swallowed that jig. He thought that was something to eat.
He ate it.
What flash? Yeah.
I think that
Did he do it again? Hey,
There you go.
there he is.
There you go.
All right.
Get him out of here.
Fish.
We're indebted to Charlie Stam. He has an auto parts store there in Teaneck, New Jersey. Fishes the river regularly, and he certainly opened our eyes to some different sights and very, very good fishing. I tell you what, folks, due to the bad weather, we only fished a couple of these good places of his, too.
We got a little while yet, I
Get
think.
your buddy here.
Oh, there is a couple more down there. Yeah. I'm getting tired.
You're making him mad.
Tired.
Real mad. Come on, baby.
Oh man, that's a big blue.
Wow.
That's a big blue. Woo. That's got to be.
Hope you noticed how well Hoover handles his rod on these fish. He really thinks that he could catch a whale on light tackle, and you know,
All right.
he maybe could.
Thank you, partner. Ironically as it may seem, I really believe today I catch more of actually get more of the bigger fish to the boat by using a light line. Because one, you're going to take your time. You're not going to horse that thing in, and you're going to get him up there. And if you take it easy with it, you'll still land in probably a higher percentage than sometimes I think with the heavier equipment you get a little more excited.
Well, yeah, look, for the most part, you break line. Fish don't ever break your line. You break your line yourself, so you are a little more conscious with that 4-pound line. And you learn, and we're getting around to a rod right now. The rod and the line together are the two most important things about jig fishing, or jig type fishing. And being able to handle your rod correctly is good fishing where fish doesn't break your line. But talk about that a little bit. How important is that rod? And what kind of rod do you want?
Okay. I use maybe two distinct types. And one, similar to what you have here, is a really light rod. It's you might call it whipping. Some people would, certainly. But that is for feel, for the times when you're catching some fish and they're not really just hitting the bait real hard, and maybe you pick it up and it feels a little heavy and that, but because that rod's real light and bends really, you can feel the tension on there. The other would be a little bit stiffer rod, a little longer, and I think that being a longer rod, it tends to help you set the hook and get the hook in just a little bit better.
And we're talking about simple things here. You said earlier we're going back to the basics, but we're talking about fishing line and fishing rods here. Nothing mind-boggling. Anybody can do what we're talking about.
You know, that's true. And you talked about, you mentioned the line, and that fish don't break line. That's true. You know, what happens when you break your line, you either didn't tie it on correctly or it's got rough and needs to be changed or that. If you take the rod, you let the fish fight the rod. You know, I learned something quite a while ago, many years ago, from a trout fisherman, really. And I used to set the hook and start to fight the fish. He'd come up to jump and throw the bait off. And, gosh, it's because I've not got a heavy enough rod and reel and equipment. I'm not getting the hook stuck in. Wasn't it at all. The trout fisherman explained, he said, when you first set the hook, don't really start reeling. Let the fish fight against the rod and pull the tension across there, which will then pull the barb of the hook in there. And then you can go to doing it. Now, one little thing probably made more difference than actually.
Haven't seen him yet.
Oh! God.
That look like a blue?
Yeah.
Looks like a blue?
Got.
Yeah, it's bluefish.
Yeah.
We got a little while yet, I think.
Get your buddy here.
Well, there is a couple more down there, yeah.